long as I can remember, I've been seeking for something outside of myself. During the school day, I could easily go home and I would manipulate my parents somehow into saying, I want to try the other school in a different district, and that always happened for me somehow. Had my first drink actually with my aunt when I was 12. My cousin was drinking white Zinfandel and I wanted a sip and ended up liking it a lot, and my aunt, let me have more. I went into 7th grade and immediately I got into the wrong crowd. Just started smoking pot, and my parents put a tracker on my car and I would just always go and I would remove it and I would, leave it at the friend's house I said I was at. And I got away with that for a while. I think I thought my parents were really gullible, but I know that they're smart people and they weren't. When I was 18 and I graduated from high school, I moved out of the house immediately because I wanted to be able to go and do whatever I wanted, and I was 18 and I was big and bad, so I could go and do that. I got a boyfriend and he was a football player and had a lot of shoulder surgeries and things, so that's where I kind of got introduced to the pain medication, but I always had someone that would buy alcohol for me, starting at a young age, but definitely at 18. I always thought I was a person that wasn't going to go to jail. They would always let me go. I could talk them out of it because, I've been doing this with my parents for so long. So I had a really good job and I ended up being able to buy a condo with my parents' help when I was 19. So, I'd come home from a day of work and it was just a bottle of wine or something, because now it's just no one's watching me. And I did end up talking the doctor that I worked with mainly into telling him I had anxiety and I couldn't sleep, and that's when Xanax came into the picture. That was kind of what I took during the day, and then I would go home and drink at night. I ended up moving to Colorado because I met a guy. When I moved, the nurse practitioner moved into my condo, and just a few short months later, she ended up committing suicide. I knew I was drinking when I got up in the morning and, taking the Xanax with it. And one of those blackouts from Xanax and alcohol landed me in jail. I was let out on a PR bond, and when I got out, my boyfriend had told me that my parents were only an hour away. When we drove up to the house, there was 6 cars outside, and I walked into basically an intervention. I have to tell my parents that their daughter is abusive when she drinks and when she takes pills. I felt humiliated that I had to admit that to them. So we're driving back to Arizona. I didn't know, but my whole family in the background is working it out to get me help. And I don't think my dad even knew who he was calling, but on the other line was this voice, and there was just a few things that he said to me. He said, I'm in control, I have the power, I don't have to go. My sister said, well, that person that you talked to, will you go and meet with him tomorrow? You don't have to go and do anything, but just go talk with him. He told me about ABT, and he told me that, they had a really good program. And when I got back in my car, I sent my dad a text and I said, if I wanted to go to treatment today, would you help me? And he said, yeah. So within 2 hours, I was packed up and coming to ABT. When I would get into those fits about why am I even here? I'm hearing this person talk and that's not my story, There was one person that told me look at the similarities, not the differences, and then just remember that you haven't been there yet. Everyone looks so happy, and I wanted to be happy again because I had been searching for something outside of myself for so long. I kept hearing the same thing, you get a sponsor, you go to meetings. I'm okay, I'm going to meetings, I don't have a sponsor. So I called this number and I left a message and I just told her my name, and she explained to me that, by working my steps further and continuing to read the big book and talking with her, it didn't take very long for me to realize the work that I was putting into the readings and, just writing things out for her, that wasn't for her, it was for me. I was learning things about myself. Today, I work program every day. I go to meetings. My relationship with my family is amazing today. I can turn on my phone tracker and they don't even look at that anymore because they the relationship that I've built with them by just, working a solid program and living in the solution. They trust me, probably not 100% yet, but we'll get there. There's no need to be involved in anything outside when that's what you're there for. You're there to, work on yourself and figure out these issues that are lying, within you so that you can, get out and go and live life.